Okay, this video is going to be regarding Three Eye Atlas, as well as I'm going to put the Bible there. I believe in Scripture, and I want to reveal what Three Eye Atlas is, what meaning it has with Scripture. Now, to do this, I have to go through Scripture a bit, just kind of like show you exactly how I came up with this decision. Okay, now, first of all, I want to put in here is people often fail to understand what is written, let me start that over. I'm new at this, what can I say? What people often fail to understand is that when Christ returns, it will be from heaven. And so I suppose what needs to be understood is that Christ is basically an alien. He's coming from heaven. Satan was cast out of heaven. And he's not roaming around up there. The only person roaming around up there is Jesus. And I'll go through Scripture, explain why. Now, Scripture explains that those of this world will never accept that Christ is an alien. In fact, the Bible states that they are of the world and the world will hear them. And because they are unable to believe in Scripture in its totality, we are told that at Christ's return it will result in the beast and the kings of this world, whether they're kings or presidents or whatever you want to call them. Anyway, they will make war with Christ when he returns. And, all of this is basically mentioned in Revelation. So that's not something that I'm just making up. It's in Revelation. Now, the reason people have a hard time believing Christ is an alien, is that people don't understand the reason God created human beings. Once you're able to understand the reason Christ created human beings, you're able to understand that we were the only ones that was created and the reason for us being created, while others just don't believe in creation but think life is all some sort of an accident, and the Suba monkey progressed to the point where they could build spaceships and go to the moon. They don't explain the reason or why they believe this progression came to a halt, but it just did. I mean, they don't tell you anything other than that. Now, people in the past didn't understand the reason for their existence either. And the Bible explains that when there came a time when the entire population decided to venture and travel from the area they inhabited. We don't know all the circumstances or reasons they chose to relocate, but that when they moved, it's in Genesis, and I read the King James Version of Scripture. It explains they journeyed from the east where they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. Now, on that day, like in our days, people had heard stories of the flood of Noah, yet the population, like those in our days, was knowledgeable about the flood. Yet being knowledgeable about something doesn't mean you're totally believe it in your heart. And I think the reason is because so many people who don't really understand Scripture, they end up telling you that elephants and tigers and everything else was taken aboard that ship. They're not worried about the people. It's all about the animals. And so I think it's caused a lot of confusion. So during that time, obviously, like our day, when they had traveled, I guess they went a considerable distance. They decided to establish their roots in a place called Shinar. However, they too were confused and somewhat bewildered because while traveling, they encountered no other living human beings. Consequently, they decided to leave a footprint and a name for themselves. And the reason they wanted to leave evidence revealing they had been there was because they were confused about not finding other human beings. In fact, it is written verbatim, I'm reading this, in a King James Bible. It says, "Go to, let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth." In other words, if they were forced to move from Shinar ever had to leave there again, and this place was also called Babylon, they wanted to create evidence that of their existence. So others, if others came upon them, they would they'd know that there was other human beings there. And even in this day, when we do archaeology digs, we find all this evidence of ruins and what have you. Oh, there was somebody that lived there, So the same thing was true then. So you see, like many in those days, or many today, who build spaceships and they fly to heaven in search of other living beings, they too couldn't understand how they were the only life form that existed. Next, what I do want to go over on this is Three-Eye Atlas. And why I believe it's related and reveals in what it reveals in Scripture. Now, there's also 12 comets flying around, Three-Eye Atlas, and numerous asteroids recently in our galaxy. And all of this is highly unusual. I mean, normally they'll find maybe a comet or two a year, maybe an asteroid a year. There's other things happening where, we've got the Earth is tilting. We have so much going on, and people are like, distress of nation with perplexity. Therefore, I want to explore everything and why this is happening as indicated in Scripture, and explain the significance of this using the Bible, as well as my understanding of what is written and what I believe is about to happen. Now, of course, I believe in creation. I don't believe in evolution. And I also know the reason God created human beings, and the reason why we are the only people or creatures, that He created. First, also I want to mention here is that it was whispered among many people that Three-Eye Atlas is an anomaly. Many people believe it is the creation of aliens. Now, as I stated, I believe Christ is an alien. He comes from heaven. And as I explained, and He's not, of this world. Now, Jesus told us there would be signs in the heaven, earthquakes upon earth in divers places. But when these things begin to happen, to look up, for the sign of the Son of Man would appear in heaven. The sign, now remember, it's the sign of the Son of Man. And this sign will designate the beginning of the Great Tribulation, as it is the day of the Lord, basically. That's the Great Tribulation starting. And the reason I suspect it brings in the Great Tribulation even is because Matthew explains that when the sign of the Son of Man appears, the tribes of the earth will mourn. So my question has always been, what was meant by the sign of the Son of Man, other than something that aliens would have created? I, of course, understand the reason God created humans, and I believe in creation and not evolution. I also realize that God is love, and He is also forgiving. However, if you have a father upon earth and he witnesses you doing things, wrong things, or going in the wrong direction, wouldn't He want to warn you and perhaps even punish you? Hence, this is the reason, I believe, for the Great Tribulation. Or because Hebrew explains, for God loveth those He chastiseth and scourgeth. And we know God so loved the world, not a certain denomination, not a certain caste of people, but Christ was sent to, save the entire world. And if we deal with the chastisement, God's going to deal with you or me or anybody like a son or daughter. Now, I know there's people who are going to be rebellious. I mean, they were supposed to fly out of here and leave the rest of us behind. And they're going to become angry. Angrier than they probably already are. And I do believe we all have a free choice, and each of us will have to make our own bed. At which point I realized Three-Eye Atlas is obviously it's an anomaly. And this is creation, as a lot of people have determined it is a creation of aliens. I know it would, and because of this, I know it would be the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. Now, I wanted to examine and see exactly what that meant, or what's going to happen if this is, true, and my understanding is correct. When the sign of the Son of Man appears, as we know, it heralds in the day of the Lord. And Amos explains that the day of the Lord is a time of darkness. It's not of light. Then Revelation tells us that when... no, let me do that again. I'm reading this. Then Revelation tells us what will take place. And I will read this. I'm going to read it verbatim, just so you can see. And I read from the King James Bible. So it says, when he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of a half hour. Oh my gosh. Okay. And about the space of a half hour. And I saw the 7 angels, which stood before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets. And another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense, so that he should offer it with the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar, which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense, which came with the prayers of the saints, ascended up before God and out of the angel's hand. And the angel took the censer and filled it with fire and the altar, and cast it into the earth. And there were voices and thunders and lightnings and an earthquake. And because the day of the Lord has come, an angel arrives at the sun and strikes it, which causes the third part of the sun to be smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars, so as the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the light likewise. And I beheld, and I heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpets of the 3 angels which are yet to sound. So even by that, you should know that if God was passing judgment on bad, it wouldn't be the bad inhabitants of the earth only, I mean, I've heard these people say that it's, I forget what they call them, coming from heaven, or some craziness. Anyway, again, this verse, though, what I wanted to point out is that it announces the day of the Lord. So as I understand it, based on the above information, 3-eye atlas, and will somehow affect the sun, causing it to dim by a third. Now, I'm not a scientist, and I don't have a clue how it will happen, but I know it will happen if I have understood this correctly. And what I'm doing here is, if I have understood this correctly, and God has, given me the understanding, I kindly request that you obtain my book or read it with the one I have available online, and that one is free. I mean, I've made it very affordable, like $15 or something. But anyway, the one online it's totally free, and this little book will help. With the help of Scripture. I mean, I've been writing it for 60-some years already, and at least 50-some. And it's going to explain why God created all people, not just for some to have some glory and the others to be out there on drugs. It's going to explain the flood, why there were no elephants and lions and tigers on board. It's going to explain who the beast is. It's going to explain all of that. It's simple. I mean, when I first started writing this, I probably had a 7th grade education, and it's taken me a long time to just kind of put it in words that I could explain it to other people. And I'm not a religious organization. I can't tell you to go here or go there. I'm just a voice that pleads for you to look up, and it is my hope this little book can provide you with eyes to see. The name of the book is titled Welcome to Armageddon by Bonnie B. Bell. It is available on Amazon and explains the reason God created all humans. Please note, I'm not a tech person. Making this video has been a joke. Anyway, I'm not. So my website that I created is not very professional. Not like I wish I could have made it. However, the book is available free online. I hooked it up right with the Amazon book. So, and if you want to buy it or get one free, you're up to you. Now, I would appreciate if you do understand and see what I'm saying, that you would like the video. It would help me to get this out to more people. And I appreciate you, and I wish you all the best of luck. I really do. Okay, bye.